Hey Shadowbrook Church, this is Jordan here, pastor to students.
And I am Jeff Sarr. I'm the pastor to kids.
Welcome.
That was a good start. We've been trying to cut through the awkward
Oh man, okay.
of putting this together, but we're here because we know that you've been bombarded not only with your kids at home, but with them having to use technology all the time, and being in front of a screen. And as much as we try to manage that as parents and as teachers and leaders and stuff like that, it's only doubled and tripled. And then so we're here to kind of maybe just talk through some of those things with you, answer some questions, and really see what God's Word teaches us about the good, the bad, and the ugly of technology. So we can, just have dialogue about that, and maybe this could help you out.
Yeah.
So Jordan's going to ask us, we're just going to start with some questions that we have, that we've come up with, some things that we thought through together, and we're going to go from there.
Yeah, so to start us off, let me ask this, Jeff. Does God even care about our devices and what we do with our time?
Yeah, I think obviously that God cares about that a great deal, about what we do with our devices and time, because I think that a lot of times our technology, our phones, iPads, and things like that really become idols quickly, and they're designed to become idols in our lives, and that's what they're there for. They're there to entertain us, and so they very quickly can take up a large capacity of time, because it's how we connect with friends, and it's how we connect with each other a lot of times, and it's how we get obsessed with things we should never get obsessed with. So
Absolutely.
I'd say so.
Yeah. I'm reading or skimming through a book by John Parrott on technology, and it's a student's guide to help them navigate how to use it, how do you glorify God. He talks about how not only does God care about our devices and our time, but he wants us to realize, like, devices and technology, those are God's gift to us. That's a kindness to us, because devices aren't evil in themselves. They are amoral. There's no evil about a device, whether it's a laptop or a phone. It's the people who use them that do evil things or righteous things with them. So God has given us devices to help alleviate the sorrows and sufferings caused by sin. And he also cares significantly about how we use them, and we need to see them as gifts.
Yeah, and technology is a gift. It's a gift, and it's a grace in our lives that we are even able to have school at home, and be able to get through this time with our devices and with computers and things like that. So it is, Jordan's right, it is a gift to us. But why would you say that God cares so much about our devices? Why would you say that?
Yeah.
Coming from a student pastor perspective, and what you see with the students.
Yeah. Well, God cares about our devices because, more importantly, he cares about us. He cares about our hearts. He cares about what we're worshiping, what we're committed to, what we're loving, what we're treasuring. We were made, most importantly, fundamentally, at the bedrock level, we were made to be loved and accepted by Jesus Christ. And he cares about our devices because, in one part, the pitfall side of the gift of technology is that we can use our technology to find love, significance, and acceptance in what we do on social media, in the hopes and happinesses we find in our apps and in our social media, in what Netflix can do for us when we binge and we're having a hard day. Those emotional reactions we have to difficulties in our life where we go to technology or devices, those are God's substitutes, which God does not want in our lives, as Scripture makes clear again and again. But God cares about what we do with our devices because we are worshipers, period. Like that's what we are. We're always worshiping something. And so the way that we use our devices matters because he cares immensely, infinitely about our sins, and he cares about our righteousness. So he wants us to live a righteous life. He's given devices as a gift to alleviate the teenage conditions of the sin-scarred world, whatever they may be. But yeah, he cares about how teens handle devices because he wants them to find their love and acceptance in him, while at the same time utilizing his gifts of devices and technology to advance his kingdom.
Right. And the same goes for younger kids. I mean, as kids are getting as kids with phones gets younger and younger and younger every year. It's the same story. It's the same thing, and so God would want them to use those devices the same way. But when I think about that, I feel like, one of the things we should do is start with parents. So moms and dads, if you have kids in your house with devices, phones especially, you guys got to set the pace. And that's one of the most important things for us as parents, is God designed us to be good stewards of the kids in our home. And one of those ways that we can be the best steward of our children is to set the pace for things, and especially with technology, especially with the amount of time that we're on our own phones and the amount of times that we spend posting things on social media and things like that, or just kind of going through stuff and reading different posts. And I think the parents need to set that pace and need to set the example of devices in the home. So
Yeah, and I think one sliver of what Jeff's talking about too is exactly what Jared preached on when we started our Genesis series, looking at the concept of Sabbath rest. We need to set the pace, parents, not only in how we use our devices, but how we rest from our devices. I believe that we don't necessarily live in accordance to the Old Testament rules of what Sabbath is, but we carry that principle over of resting in the New Testament and in the New Testament church today. All the way up to where we're at in 2020 with Shadowbrook parents. And so what would it look like for you to apply the concept of Sabbath rest in regards to your household and living with your kids and using your devices? So we need to realize, like, you both model to your kids what it looks like to use your devices rightfully, but then you also need to realize what it looks like to model to your kids what it means to rest from your devices as well.
Right. So you mentioned the word pitfalls a few minutes ago, and what would you say are some of the pitfalls just of allowing kids to have devices in the first place, and the stuff that we should be aware of?
Yeah. Well, for one, we're going to be held accountable to God for the time that we spend in this world, whether we used it productively to advance God's kingdom, or whether we did it to advance our own kingdom agenda and self-aggrandizement. So I care significantly about my students in Shadowbrook Students Ministry and what they do with their free time and how they use their devices, because they can get sucked in to the God substitute of what devices are. And that's a significant thing I was looking at in that book I had referenced earlier, is that devices, every technology that we have, it mimics something of God. It has a God likeness. For instance, God is all wise. What can Google do for us? It can give us the wisdom of every answer to every question we could ever have. And what does that do for us? There's lots of benefits, of course, but when we get trapped in this mental rut where we don't seek outside help, we are self-sufficient beings. As long as I have my iPhone and can Google the answer, I don't need to communicate with my dad or my brother about how to do this thing or that thing. So my fear is that we become so ingrained that Google is the answer to how I live my life, that we don't rely on the community, the church, our family unit, to learn how to live life wisely as Christians in this world. So that's one big thing. There's so many things I could talk about. I'm always worried about the temptations that are hidden or prevalent and just in your face online with all the marketing and sexualized web experiences that really concerns me for kids at any age.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, just some of the pitfalls or things that pop up. If you're in a habit of letting your child, or if your child's in the habit of jumping on YouTube, that's one of the things that could be a very slippery slope. For instance, they could be looking at legit funny videos of whatever, and some other video that's on the side, as they're watching one, they could look over and there's a video that points them in the wrong direction. We
don't have control over those side videos, right? On YouTube, it can just be anything.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either. That can be the danger.
Even I just feel like there's even danger, even if they're sticking to YouTube Kids. There's danger in things getting snuck in. There are things that sneak into the line of sight or the line of watching. So I don't specifically know. I know that, but I know that there are times that even even in my own home, as my kids are just watching funny things on YouTube, um, that the wrong type of video will sneak in on that right side, and the temptation is there to look at it. I know there's some of the pitfalls, but one of the things in dealing with some of those pitfalls is we just got to be on our guard. Like, we just can't let our guard down. We can't assume that our kid is always going to choose something of value or something that's godly. So if we do allow them to have that time online, we have to assume that somebody is ready to show them something that they don't need to see. And so we just need to be, I would say, just diligent in checking
Yeah.
and looking over their shoulder and establishing that that's a boundary in your home. That if you have kids, you say no, you don't watch videos in a different room than me. You don't watch videos without me looking over your shoulder from time to time, just to make sure that you're looking at things that are uplifting and encouraging, and just things that they need to be looking at. So,
and I know that you're going to mention some good resources that can help them exactly with those things in a minute. But I wanted to ask real quick. So God has given us the gift of devices, technology, both for leisure and for advancing His kingdom and getting work done, and all these great benefits. But what are some ways, now that we've seen some pitfalls and dangers, what are some ways that we can use this gift to glorify God as parents and as children and as middle schoolers and high schoolers? What are some of your thoughts on that?
well, I think, using technology to our advantage as parents, there are great things out there to help them grow in their spiritual walk. There are great apps out there that are Bible apps. There are great apps like Right Now Media that point the right type of videos and things that they should be watching, things that help them grow to know the Lord better. There are great Bible memorization apps. There's New City Catechisms. There's all sorts of things out there that can point us in the right direction, that you can point your kids to, that would help them, just stay on the right track as far as technology goes. But those are several of the advantages that are there. They can be a great help to us for a culture and kids that are screen driven for the most part. That can be a great help. Is if our kids are going to be on a screen, what can we point them to? And there's so many great things out there. There's so many good things out there that are like every major curriculum developer, every major biblical organization that we would trust, that puts out good content. It's out there for kids.
Yeah.
And there is a huge focus right now on putting out really good kid content. So where, as I was growing up, a lot of the stuff was really cheesy and boring, and it's not stuff I would want to watch. A lot of these publishers and different companies are putting out stuff that are really, really good and really targeting godly material for kids, so that they're not missing a beat. And so we have that opportunity to use some of those to our advantage, whether it's through family worship or whether it's just as a kid sitting there watching. There's just, I would say, just endless amounts of good material out there now.
Absolutely. And this will likely air while we are still quarantined because of coronavirus, and so there are some obvious things that we get to do as pastors trying to be digital disciple makers, if that's even a thing. So one thing that I've gotten to do that was a real treasure was getting to do our first life group on Zoom. We have a group meet for our high schoolers and middle schoolers where we get to communicate. Sometimes I'll get to send a text out to just check in, send something funny, remind them that a sermon's going to be published on IGTV or something like that. So, there's so many good things that we can do to stay in communication, as well as all of the resources like Right Now Media out there. And this is especially crucial to get on board with communicating through technology in this season of life. More than ever before, we need to be connected because we are isolated in one sense from each other. And so the church can't meet as we normally get to meet, as you know, but in any way that we can connect and see each other, whether that's on FaceTime or what have you. Like I'm just thankful that there are these opportunities I'm getting with my students, and I think that's one way that we get to glorify God is we're persevering through a global catastrophe in pursuing fellowship with one another even now.
Right. And there's just the technology is a great advantage for us because we're able, like you said, to connect with you guys in so many different ways, whether it's pointing you to something good to read or it's actually putting video out there or content for you guys to watch. It's actually been a lot of fun to be able to like record some of these videos and watch kids respond to them and just be a part of them and feel like they're still a part of what we do on Sundays. So we can use technology to our advantage like that in a lot of ways so that we can still continue to do ministry and still be able to partner with parents and be able to get that stuff out there. Yeah. So,
well, hey, we have a few minutes left, so I want to ask one last question. What are some healthy habits that parents can form to help form their kids? What are some healthy habits parents can form to be the primary disciple makers of their children right now?
My biggest thing for parenting, one of the biggest things is just set boundaries and don't set them super tight, but set boundaries and establish those boundaries and have conversations about those boundaries. So I know that when technology comes up, kids understand boundaries and they work well within boundaries. So set boundaries so that they know what's expected of them, whether that's the amount of time that they're online, whether that's what they can watch and where they can watch it. But set boundaries for not just them, but for yourself as a family. So sit down and establish technology boundaries as a family. Discuss when you're going to be able to get online, when it's free time, where even your devices are. Like, a lot of times in areas like at your kitchen table, of course, but maybe in your main living space or something like that, that's a no technology zone. Or you set, places like when you all come home, that you put your phones and all your devices in a certain place because you want to maximize that connecting time so that you can sit down and have meals together and just have different times together that you can connect, reading God's Word or playing a game, and just say those are no technology zones. We won't have any of our devices in line of sight or where we would stop and go, hold on, got a text, and get up and, disrupt whatever we're doing to answer something. So I think that's a healthy habit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another one would just be, I think that's probably the biggest healthy habit. Okay. Developing, just setting those boundaries as a family and have a good discussion about it. Ask your kids, how much do you think we should be able to get online, and let them have conversation about what they feel is healthy. And a lot of times kids will surprise you with good answers there. So I would say as a family, develop those boundaries and keep them.
Yeah. Well, let me preface with some stats and then let me tell you my ideas of how to practically form healthy habits, because they might seem radical, but they're not necessarily radical if you realize what these stats mean for us. I found out that on average, Americans spend about 10 hours per day on media. I'm not saying TV, but media specifically. The average American spends 7.5 years of their life watching TV, and they spend 5 years of their life on social media. That's an estimate. It's a statistic of U.S. Citizens. And so with that in your head, it's just like crazy how much time we spend in front of screens. And so I'm not saying that that's wrong or evil, but I'm saying let's think about how much time that is and then dial it back into our daily routines. How much time are you spending watching TV or on Netflix or using your devices? How much time are your kids doing that? Now, after you evaluate that, think, what would it look like if I cut an hour of my time on devices and an hour of my kids' time on devices and did something different and constructive? What could that look like? What about device fasting or app fasting? There have been seasons of my life where I decided that I didn't need Instagram for a season because I needed to focus on other things. At some point, I decided that I didn't need Facebook at all, and so I got rid of my account. I'm still on social media and out there, but I've found that there's more time for me to focus on other things. And I would just encourage you, what would it look like for you to consider bringing in more time together as a family and cutting out more time on your devices? What could it look like to fast from an app in particular that might be taking a lot of your attention away, or even a particular device that you're spending too much time on?
Yeah, and even if you feel like, well, gosh, I don't want to get rid of my Facebook account for the millions of reasons that you're making up in your head right now, like I was when he was talking about that. But one of the quick steps you could take is actually just delete the app off your phone.
Yeah.
You would be probably shocked at how little you go on Facebook if that app's not staring you in the face with that pretty blue color. And that's something I've done over the years as I've had it. I've had to delete it off my phone because I find myself going straight to it. And when you start to realize that some of those bad habits are creeping up, I mean, that to me is a very quick baby step. So whatever app it is, try deleting it off your phone. If you know that you can go to Facebook on your browser and you check it maybe once a day, twice a day, you find that you're not clicking on it several times in an hour.
Yeah.
Or waiting for a notification to come in and responding to that immediately, things like that. So,
and then last thing I want to say is I agree that we really need to emphasize to you as pastors who love you and want you to love your kids well, like, it's really important to not try to multitask when you're enjoying meals and quality time with your kids. Like, what damage is it going to do if you turn your phone off or you put it on airplane mode when you're gathering with your kids and spending that specific time together at your dinner table, or when you guys have a game night? Like, it says so much to a kid when you're on your phone in the midst of hanging out with them, that I would rather show them how much I love them through spending specific time with just them. I think that means so much to kiddos than knowing that, like, oh, my parent is a multitasker right now, and that's how I'm gonna live my life.
It's true, and kids aren't impressed by that. What they're learning is bad habits. They're not thinking you're great. They're thinking this is normal. And so when you break what they consider normal, when you break those habits, and normal is sitting at the table and talking about your day and talking about the good and the bad and just what you've done and what you've learned. Those are building the right types of habits into your kids, and they're realizing that technology is a supplement, it's a gift, it's something you can use, but it's not controlling of your life. Online, there's a great interview with an author who discusses, like, the moment you put your phone on the table, you've told that person at the table that they are second to whatever happens to you on that phone. So if a text pops up, that's going to be your main focus no matter what. So the moment that you bring your phone out and put it in the vicinity or eyesight of people around you that you should be talking to and connecting with, you're telling them that they're second place, and that phone is going to have priority in whatever you're doing. So yeah, that's definitely something that just.
Do you want to share the resources you'd recommend, and then we'll sign off?
Yeah. So I know as kids become more social, and as we hopefully will be able to re-engage society, one of those things as parents, I know for me, as someone who thinks about this constantly, and as a pastor I think about this constantly, what are some of those things that can help do the work for me while I'm not around? And there are several things out there. There's several good tools, but I would tell you probably the top of my list right now is a company called Bark that's doing a lot of good work and a lot of true work in pointing out some of the dangers that are out there, but also just saying, parents, we know you can't monitor your kids, and quite honestly, the more you look over their shoulder as they get older, the less they're going to like you doing that, even if they're not doing something wrong. And so in a company like Bark provides a service that's super cheap, $9 a month, but they'll help you monitor every app that your kid has, whether that's texting, whether that's YouTube, whether that's TikTok, whether that's Snapchat, Instagram. It monitors all of those for you, and you're able to kind of keep track of just exactly who's communicating with your child. So not just what your child's doing, but who's communicating with your child. And it doesn't help you necessarily be nosy, but it helps you, stay in the loop as to what your kid is doing. So for me, $9 a month, Bark, that is worth its weight in gold, just to help me as a parent. I know that's a big one. So yeah, probably more than anything else. Yeah, probably more than anything else. If you're a reader like I am and you love to just pick up resources that you think might help you, this probably right now for me as a family is probably the best book that I could recommend. It's called A Tech Wise Family, written by Andy Crouch, and it has so many good tools in there. He has what he calls the 10 commitments of technology for the family, and just great recommendations about how to stay in the loop and how to actually move technology out of being the priority of your life, but how to use it to your advantage too. So I would recommend that. Again, that's called The Tech Wise Family. Super small book. I like these size, even though it looks thick. It's an easy read, super easy read. So yeah, that's what I would definitely recommend.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for tuning in with us. As always, we are available to you. Reach out to us by text, phone calls, emails, whatever would be easiest for you. If you have any questions or wanted to add anything that we may have missed, we'd love to hear from you in this season where we don't get to see each other one-on-one or physically in person. So please feel the freedom to reach out if you have any needs or questions or prayer requests between you and your kids. And we'd love to help navigate you in that direction of discipleship in any way we can. So thank you, Shadowbrook Church.
Thank you.